Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. A rich girl, a homeless guy. One rainy day in Seattle changes everything. She's got it all. He's got nothing. But wait, is he really who he seems? A hidden millionaire? A forgotten hero? Every move they make unravels a secret too big to ignore. Who is he? And why does kindness feel so dangerous? Stick around. This gets wild. The rain came down in sheets over Seattle. A classic November afternoon where the sky seemed to melt into the gray waters of Lake Union. Avery Brooks sat cross-legged on a damp bench in Gasworks Park, her sketchbook balanced on her knees, a pencil scratching furiously across the page. She was 22, with dark curls spilling out from under a knit beanie, and she wore a Burberry coat that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her parents owned Brooks Realty, a real estate empire that stretched across the Pacific Northwest, but right now, she didn't care about any of that. She just wanted to capture the rusted pipes of the old gas plant against the moody skyline before the light faded. "Damn it," she muttered, as a fat raindrop splattered onto her drawing, smudging the ink. She shoved her pencils into her bag, standing up just as the downpour kicked into high gear. Her boots splashed through puddles as she hurried toward the park's exit, clutching her sketchbook like it was a lifeline. That's when it happened. Someone bumped into her, hard enough to make her stumble. "Hey! Watch it!" she snapped, spinning around. Her eyes landed on a man in a tattered jacket, his hair plastered to his forehead from the rain. He was crouched, picking up a quarter that had rolled into a puddle. His hands were grimy, his jeans soaked through, and he smelled faintly of wet cardboard. A homeless guy. Great. "Oh my God, don't touch me. Do you know how much this coat costs?" "Of course you don't. You're homeless." The man straightened up, his face weathered but oddly calm. "Sorry, miss," he said, his voice low and steady, like he'd heard worse 1,000 times. "Didn't mean to ruin your day." He held out the quarter, as if it was some kind of peace offering, but Avery just glared and turned on her heel. She made it 10 steps before guilt gnawed at her. She glanced back, expecting him to be gone, but he was still there, standing under a dripping tree. A jogger in a neon vest slowed down near him, fishing a couple of bucks from his pocket. "Hey man, you didn't deserve that," the guy said, loud enough for Avery to hear. "Wish I had more to give." The homeless man nodded, pocketing the cash with a quiet, "God bless you." Avery rolled her eyes, typical Seattle do-gooder, but then she froze. Instead of heading off to buy a coffee or a beer, the man shuffled over to a food cart near the park entrance, the kind that sold hot dogs and pretzels. He handed over the bills and came back with a single steaming bun, which he promptly tore in half and gave to a woman sitting on the curb, her kid bundled in a ratty blanket beside her. Avery stood there, rain soaking through her beanie, watching this guy who had nothing give away what little he'd just gotten. "What the hell?" she whispered to herself. She didn't know why it bugged her so much, but it did. She shook her head and hurried home, the image of his tired eyes sticking with her like wet leaves on her boots. A few days later, the rain hadn't let up, but Avery was back at the park. She told herself it was for the sketch. She wanted to finish that damn drawing, but deep down, she knew she was looking for him. Sure enough, there he was, sitting on a bench with a plastic bag over his head like some makeshift hood. She watched from a distance as a woman in a frayed coat approached him, her voice shaky. "I've got a doctor's appointment, but I'm short for the bus. Can you spare anything?" The man dug into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, probably all he had. "Here you go, ma'am," he said, pressing it into her hand. "Hope it gets you there and back." The woman's face lit up. "You don't know how much this means. Thank you. You're an angel." He just shrugged, like it was no big deal. Avery's jaw dropped. She'd seen panhandlers pocket cash 1,000,000 times, but this? Before she could process it, a kid, no older than 10, shivering in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, wandered over. The man peeled off his soggy jacket and draped it over the boy's shoulders. "Keep it," he said. "You need it more than me." That was it. Avery couldn't just stand there anymore. She marched over, clutching the Starbucks bag she'd grabbed on her way. "Hey," she said, thrusting a turkey sandwich at him. "You can't keep giving everything away like that. You're gonna freeze out here." He looked up, those same tired eyes meeting hers, and smiled, a small, crooked thing that made her stomach flip. "I've been colder," he said, taking the sandwich. "Name's Miles, by the way, and thanks for this. Most folks don't bother." "Avery," she replied, shifting awkwardly. "And seriously, why do you do it? You've got nothing, and you're handing out cash and clothes like you're Santa Claus." Miles unwrapped the sandwich, taking a slow bite before answering. "I don't have much to lose, but they do. I figure kindness comes back around, right? That's what I tell myself anyway." She stared at him, rain dripping off her nose. There was something about the way he said it. Simple, sure, like he'd lived it. "You're weird, Miles," she said finally, but she couldn't help smiling back. "Don't die out here, okay?" "Deal," he chuckled, and she walked away feeling lighter than she had in weeks. That night, Avery was sprawled on her bed in her Capitol Hill apartment, technically her parents' second home, scrolling through her phone when it buzzed. Her mom's name popped up. Lillian Brooks. She groaned and answered. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" "Where were you today?" Lillian's voice was sharp, the kind of tone that meant business. "You skipped the company dinner. Your father's furious." "I was drawing," Avery said, rolling her eyes. "You know that thing I actually like? Not schmoozing with a bunch of suits." Lillian sighed, long and dramatic. "Avery, you can't keep wandering around like some hippie. I saw that sketch you posted. Some guy in the park." "Who is he?" "Just a homeless dude I met," Avery said, defensive. "He's nice, okay? Gave away everything he had to help people. Kinda cool, actually." There was a pause, too long to be normal. Then Lillian spoke, her voice softer, almost shaky. "Avery, when I was young, broke, and trying to raise you alone, a man helped me start over. He didn't just give me money. He gave me hope. I saw someone like him in that drawing. Same eyes." Avery sat up, her heart thudding. "Wait, what? Mom, you're freaking me out. Who was he?" "I don't know his name," Lillian said. "It was 20 years ago, at a charity thing in Tacoma. He handed me a check, enough to open my first store, and said, 'Pay it forward someday.' I never forgot his face. And your guy. He looks like him." Avery's phone slipped a little in her hand. She pulled up the sketch she'd posted, a quick pencil drawing of Miles, his scruffy beard and kind eyes staring back at her. "That's impossible," she whispered. "He's just some random guy on the street." "Is he?" Lillian asked. "Or is there more to him than you think?" Avery didn't sleep much that night. She kept replaying her mom's words, picturing Miles handing out that $5, that jacket, like it was nothing. Who was he really? And why did her mom's story hit her so hard? By morning, she'd made up her mind. She had to find out more about Miles, no matter what her parents thought. "Hey guys, what do you think about Miles? Is he just a good guy, or is there more to his story? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. I'll read every single one." Seattle didn't let up on the rain, and neither did Avery Brooks. It had been a week since her mom dropped that bombshell about the mystery man from 20 years ago, and now Avery couldn't shake Miles from her head. She told herself it was just curiosity, some art student obsession with a good story. but every time she passed Gasworks Park and didn't see him, her stomach twisted a little. So she started making excuses to go back. A new sketch, a coffee run, anything to catch him under that dripping tree. This time, she found him in Pioneer Square, a couple miles south of the park. The cobblestone streets glistened under the streetlights, and the air smelled like wet pavement and espresso from the cafes lining the block. Miles was slumped against a brick wall, a plastic tarp tied over his shoulders like a cape, watching the world go by. Avery adjusted the strap of her backpack, stuffed with a sandwich, a sketch pad, and a spare umbrella, and walked over. "Hey, stranger," she said, plopping down beside him without asking. "Thought you'd drowned out there by now." Miles looked up, his crooked smile breaking through the scruff on his face. "Takes more than a little rain to finish me off, Avery." "Good to see you, too." His voice had that easy warmth she couldn't get used to, like he wasn't sitting in a puddle with nothing but a tarp to his name. She pulled out the sandwich, roast beef this time, from a deli near campus, and handed it over. "Here. Don't give this one away, okay? I'm not running a charity." He chuckled, unwrapping it. "No promises. But I'll eat it if it makes you happy." He took a bite, chewing slow, then tilted his head. "You keep coming around." "What's the deal? Not enough rich kid drama to keep you busy?" Avery smirked, brushing rain off her jeans. "Oh, plenty of that. My folks want me at some gala tomorrow night, schmoozing with CEOs. I'd rather be here drawing bums like you." She paused, then softer. "You're more interesting than they are." Miles raised an eyebrow. "Careful, you'll make me blush." He leaned back against the wall, staring up at the foggy sky. "You ever get those dreams that feel too real? Like they're not dreams at all?" She nodded, pulling her knees up. "Yeah, sometimes." "Why?" "I keep seeing this office," he said, his voice dropping. "Big desk, stacks of papers, phones ringing off the hook. I'm in a suit, fancy one too, and people are waiting for me to sign stuff. Deals, maybe. Millions of bucks on the line. Then I wake up here and it's gone." Avery laughed, half expecting a punchline. "What? You think you were a CEO in another life?" "Maybe," he said, dead serious. "Or maybe I'm just nuts." She stopped laughing. There was something in his eyes, distant, like he was reaching for a memory he couldn't grab. "You're not nuts," she said finally. "Sounds kinda cool, actually. Like you were a big shot." They sat there for a while, the rain tapping on Miles's tarp like a drumbeat. Avery pulled out her sketch pad and started drawing him. His hunched shoulders, the way his hands curled around the sandwich. He watched her work, quiet, until she held up the page. "What do you think?" He studied it, his brow furrowing. "You've got an eye for detail, like someone picking stocks, sharp but with flair. Ever think about doing more than doodling in parks?" She blinked, caught off guard. "That's weirdly specific, but yeah, I'd kill to paint full-time. My parents think it's a waste, though." "Art doesn't pay the bills, Avery." She mimicked her dad's gruff tone, then sighed. "They don't get it." Miles handed the sketch back. "They're wrong. You've got something real here. Don't let 'em take that away." Her throat tightened. No one, not her professors, not her friends, had ever said it like that. So plain and sure. She scooted closer, her shoulder brushing his. "You're not like anyone I've met, Miles. I don't know why, but I feel it." She hesitated, then grabbed his hand, cold, rough, but steady. "Don't disappear on me, okay?" He squeezed back, just a little. "You're the first person who's made me feel like I'm more than this," he said, voice low. "I'm not going anywhere." For a second, the rain didn't matter. Avery's heart thudded, and she wondered if this was what people meant by falling for someone. Then her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She ignored it, but Miles nodded at it. Better check that. Could be important. She groaned, fishing it out. A text from her mom. Where are you? Call me now. Ugh, it's my warden, she said, rolling her eyes. I'll catch you later, Miles. Stay dry. Fat chance, he grinned, and she jogged off, the warmth of his hand lingering on hers. Back at her apartment, Avery kicked off her boots and dialed her mom. Lillian picked up on the first ring. Avery, where the hell have you been? Your father's losing it over this gala. Relax, Mom, I'm fine, Avery said, flopping onto the couch. Just hanging out. You know, normal stuff. With that guy again? Lillian's tone sharpened. The one from the park? Avery sat up. Yeah, so what? His name's Miles. He's cool. Gives away everything he's got like some kind of saint. Why do you care? Lillian went quiet then. I saw your Instagram. That sketch you posted yesterday. There's something about him. Here we go again, Avery muttered. What? You think he's your mystery savior from the 90s? Maybe, Lillian said, and Avery could hear her pacing. I've been thinking about it since we talked. Those eyes, the way he carries himself, it's uncanny. And today, I found something. Her voice dropped to a whisper. An old business card in my files. Mitchell Turner, Turner Investments. He was the guy who helped me, Avery. A millionaire back in the day. Avery's stomach flipped. Wait, what? You're saying Miles is some lost rich guy? That's insane, Mom. Is it? Lillian shot back. He went missing 5 years ago. Car crash, no body found. Papers said he was dead, but what if he's not? Avery's mind raced. She grabbed her laptop and Googled Mitchell Turner, Seattle. Up popped an article from 2020, local millionaire presumed dead after fiery crash. There was a photo, blurry, but the jawline, the posture. It could be Miles. She clicked another link and her breath caught. A silver ring with MT engraved on it, listed as a missing item from the crash site. Holy crap, she whispered, then louder. Mom, I found something yesterday. He's got this ring, old, fancy, with MT on it. I thought it was junk, but... Lillian gasped. Avery, that's him. It has to be. But if he's alive, why is he on the street? Before Avery could answer, her phone pinged, an Instagram notification. Someone had tagged her sketch of Miles in a comment. Hey, isn't this that Turner guy? Swear I saw him on the news years ago. She froze. If random followers were noticing, who else might? Miles didn't know it, but across town, someone else had seen that post too. Ethan Turner sat in his penthouse overlooking Puget Sound, swirling a glass of bourbon. He was 42, slick-haired and sharp-eyed, the kind of guy who'd sell his soul for a profit. He'd built his empire on his brother's ashes, or so he thought. When Mitchell died, Ethan took over Turner Investments, thanks to some forged papers and a crooked lawyer. But now, staring at Avery's sketch on his phone, his jaw tightened. No way, he muttered. No damn way. He dialed a number. Yeah, it's me, he snapped when the line picked up. Got a job for you. Find this guy, Pioneer Square. Looks like a bum. I need to know if he's who I think he is. And if he is, make sure he stays quiet. Back in her apartment, Avery paced. The ring's image burned into her brain. Miles wasn't just a kind stranger. He might be a ghost from her mom's past, a millionaire lost to the world. But if she was right, someone out there didn't want him found. She had to get to him first. Things are heating up. Do you think Miles is really this lost millionaire? Subscribe now and let me know your theories in the comments. I'm dying to hear them. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall. It pounded, like the city was trying to wash itself clean. Avery Brooks barely noticed it as she raced through the streets of Capitol Hill, her boots splashing through puddles. It was past midnight, and her phone was blowing up with texts from her mom, Lillian. "Get home now. We need to talk about Miles." But Avery wasn't going home. Not yet. She had to find Miles first, before whoever else was out there did. She'd spent the last hour piecing it together. The ring with MT engraved on it, her mom's story about Mitchell Turner, that old news article about the crash. It all pointed to one insane truth. Miles wasn't just some homeless guy with a big heart. He was a millionaire, lost and forgotten, and someone had made damn sure he stayed that way. That Instagram comment still haunted her. If strangers were recognizing him, who else might have seen her sketch? She found him near the Pike Place market, huddled under an awning by the fish stalls. The air smelled like salt and seaweed, and the neon signs buzzed faintly overhead. Miles was wrapping a tarp around an old woman, someone Avery recognized from the park, a regular who'd nicknamed herself Dot. "Here you go, Dot," he said, his voice hoarse. "Keep the wind off you." Avery jogged over, breathless. "Miles, thank God you're here. We need to talk, now." He turned, squinting through the rain. "Avery, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," she said, grabbing his arm. "Come with me. My mom knows you, or who you used to be. We're going to her place. No arguments." He hesitated, glancing at Dot. "I can't just leave her. She'll be fine." Avery cut in, sharper than she meant. "This is bigger than a tarp, Miles. Trust me." He nodded slowly, and they took off, cutting through the slick streets toward Lillian's house, a sleek, modern thing perched on a hill overlooking the city. Avery's heart hammered the whole way, her mind spinning with what-ifs. What if her mom was wrong? What if Miles didn't want to know? What if someone got to him first? Lillian Brooks was waiting in the living room when they burst in, soaked to the bone. The place smelled like lavender candles and expensive leather, a far cry from the wet concrete Miles was used to. She stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, her sharp gray eyes locking onto Miles the second he stepped through the door. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mitch? Is that you?" Miles blinked, water dripping from his hair onto the hardwood floor. Ma'am? I think you've got the wrong guy. Name's Miles." Lillian shook her head, stepping closer. No. I'd know those eyes anywhere." She turned to Avery, voice trembling. "It's him. Mitchell Turner. The man who saved me." Avery dragged Miles to the couch, shoving a towel at him. "Mom, slow down. Tell him what you told me." Lillian took a shaky breath, sitting across from them. 20 years ago, I was a single mom, drowning in debt. You were a toddler, Avery, and I was one bad day from losing everything. Then I met him, Mitchell Turner, at a charity event in Tacoma. He was young, sharp, running some big investment firm. He handed me a check, 10 grand, and said, "Pay it forward someday." No strings, no lectures, just kindness. I used it to open my first store, and it changed our lives. Miles stared at her, his brow furrowed. I don't remember any of that. I'm sorry." "You wouldn't," Lillian said softly. "Avery told me about the crash. 5 years ago, right? They said you died, but..." She pulled an old photo from a drawer, a grainy shot of a man in a suit, shaking hands at that event. The jawline, the posture. It was Miles, cleaned up and 20 years younger. He took the photo, his hands trembling. "This guy, I've seen him, in my head sometimes, wearing that suit, signing papers." He looked up, voice cracking. "You're saying that's me?" Avery nodded, her throat tight. Yeah, Miles. And that ring you've got? It's yours. Mitchell Turner's. I checked. Lillian reached out, touching his arm. You saved me back then, Mitch. I looked for you after, to say thank you, but you were gone. And now you're here, and I... She broke off, tears spilling over. I owe you everything. Miles sank back, the towel slipping from his hands. I don't know what to say. I don't even know who I am anymore. Avery grabbed his shoulder. You're Miles, and maybe you're Mitch, too. We're going to figure it out, together. She turned to Lillian. Mom, we need to get him to a doctor. If he's been out there this long, something's wrong. Lillian wiped her eyes, nodding. I'll call my friend at Swedish Medical. We'll take him now. The hospital was a blur of white walls and beeping machines. Avery paced the waiting room while Lillian talked to the doctor, a wiry guy with glasses who looked like he'd seen it all. Miles sat in an exam room, hooked up to monitors, looking smaller than ever in a paper gown. When the doctor came out, Avery pounced. Well, what's up with him? Amnesia, the doctor said, flipping through a chart. Traumatic brain injury, likely from that crash you mentioned. He's got fragments of memory, enough to function, but the details are locked away. With treatment, some of it might come back. Avery exhaled, relief washing over her. So he's really Mitchell Turner? DNA would confirm it, the doctor said. But based on what you've told me? Probably. Lillian clutched Avery's arm, whispering, We found him, after all this time. But the moment didn't last. A man strode into the waiting room, tall, slick, in a tailored coat that screamed money. Ethan Turner. Avery recognized him from old news clips. Mitchell's younger brother, the guy who'd taken over the family empire. He flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, well, brother. We thought you were gone forever. Miles shuffled out behind the doctor, frowning. Do I know you? Ethan laughed, too loud. It's me, Mitch. Ethan. God, you look rough. We've got to get you cleaned up, huh? He clapped Miles on the shoulder, but Avery caught the edge in his voice. Something cold, calculated. She stepped between them. Hold up. How'd you even know he was here? Ethan's smile tightened. Saw a post online. Figured I'd check it out. Family reunion, right? Bullshit, Avery snapped. You didn't care till now. Lillian pulled her back, whispering, Avery, careful. He's dangerous. Ethan ignored them, turning to the doctor. I'll take him from here. He needs rest, maybe a psych eval too. Poor guy's been through hell. No way, Avery said louder. He's staying with us. But Ethan wasn't listening. He stepped out to make a call, and Avery followed, hiding behind a vending machine. She heard him hiss into his phone. Yeah, it's him. Get him out tonight, quietly. He can't remember yet, but we're not taking chances. Her blood ran cold. She bolted back to Lillian. Mom, he's planning something. We've got to move. It was 2 a.m. when Ethan's plan kicked in. 2 guys in dark jackets slipped into the hospital parking lot heading for Miles's room. Avery saw them from the window and didn't think. She grabbed her phone, hit record, and ran outside, rain soaking her instantly. Hey, she yelled, pointing the camera. Let him go! I know who he is! The men froze as Miles stumbled out, confused. Avery? What's happening? Stay back, she shouted, live streaming now. This is Mitchell Turner, and his brother's trying to bury him. Again. Her phone buzzed as viewers piled in, dozens, then hundreds. The men hesitated, then bolted when sirens wailed in the distance. Avery dropped to her knees beside Miles, rain mixing with tears. You're okay. I've got you. He grabbed her hand, shaking. I don't know who I was, but I know I need you. Lillian raced out with Jake, Avery's law student buddy, who waved a stack of papers. "Found it," he panted. "Ethan faked the death certificate. Cops are on him now." Ethan's car peeled out of the lot, but it was too late. Blue lights flashed as police swarmed in, cuffing him before he could vanish into the night. Avery hugged Miles tight, her voice breaking. "We're not done yet." Wow, that was intense. What's next for Miles and Avery? Smash that subscribe button and comment your predictions. I can't wait to see what you think. 3 months had passed since that wild night in the hospital parking lot, and Seattle was still raining, because of course it was. But tonight, the drizzle felt different, softer, like the city was exhaling after a long fight. Avery Brooks stood on the steps of a new building in Belltown, a low-rise with warm brick walls and big windows glowing against the dark. The sign out front read, "Turner Haven," etched in sleek metal letters. It was a shelter, a community center, a lifeline, Miles's idea, brought to life with his reclaimed fortune. And Avery? She designed every inch of it, from the murals on the walls to the cozy nooks where people could sit and breathe. Inside, the grand opening was in full swing. The room buzzed with chatter, volunteers pouring coffee, folks from the streets warming up with bowls of chowder, kids darting around with crayons Avery had scattered on the tables. She adjusted her scarf, a nervous habit, and scanned the crowd for Miles. He was over by the coffee station pouring a cup for Dot, the old woman from Pike Place, who'd become a regular in their lives. He'd cleaned up since the hospital. A fresh shave, a simple flannel shirt, but those kind eyes were the same. "Hey, you're slacking," Avery teased, sidling up to him. "Thought you were supposed to be the big shot tonight." Miles grinned, handing Dot her coffee. "I'm just the guy with the checkbook. You're the one who made this place look like home." He nodded at the walls, where her murals stretched, scenes of Seattle's skyline mixed with faces she'd sketched over the years, Miles's included. Dot cackled, sipping her drink. "He's right, girl. This beats sleeping under a tarp any day." Avery laughed, but her chest tightened. 3 months ago, she'd been ready to ditch everything, her parents' expectations, the Brooks Realty empire, to fight for Miles. Now here they were, building something real together. She'd quit her business classes at UW, thrown herself into art full-time, and her dad still wasn't speaking to her. But her mom? Lillian had her back, and that was enough. Miles nudged her. "You okay? You've got that look, like you're overthinking again." "Yeah, just taking it in," she said, smiling. "Come on, you've got a speech to give." He groaned, but let her drag him to the front of the room. The crowd hushed as he stepped up, scratching the back of his neck like he'd rather be anywhere else. Hey everyone," he started, voice rough but steady. "I'm Miles, Mitchell Turner, I guess, but Miles feels right. 5 years ago, I lost everything, my name, my past, my head. I ended up on the street, and I'd still be there if it wasn't for this girl right here." He pointed at Avery, and a few people whooped. "She found me, dragged me back, and gave me a reason to keep going. This place, it's for all of us who've been lost. A spot to start over. So, thanks for being here." The room erupted in applause, and Avery's eyes stung. She grabbed his hand as he stepped down, whispering, "You're a sap, you know that?" "Only for you," he shot back, squeezing her fingers. They stood there, the noise fading into a hum, and for a second it was just them. Two people who'd stumbled into each other under Seattle's endless rain. Lillian Brooks slipped in late, her coat still damp from the walk over. She'd been at a board meeting for Brooks Realty, smoothing things over with James, who still grumbled about Avery throwing her life away. But Lillian had seen enough. She caught Avery's eye across the room and waved, then made her way over. "Mom, you made it. Avery said, hugging her tight. Thought Dad might have locked you in the office. Lillian smirked. He tried, but I wasn't missing this. She turned to Miles, her expression softening. Mitchell, Miles, I've got something for you. He frowned. Ma'am, you've already done more than enough. Not quite, she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. It was yellowed, edges worn, sealed with a faded sticker. I wrote this 20 years ago after you helped me. Never got the chance to send it. Figured tonight's the night. Miles took it, hesitant, and tore it open. His eyes scanned the page, and Avery peeked over his shoulder. The handwriting was shaky, younger. To the man who gave me a second chance. I don't know your name, but you saved me today. 10 grand isn't just money, it's hope. A future for me and my girl. I'll pay it forward someday, I swear. Don't ever think you're forgotten. Lillian, Tacoma, 2005. Miles's hands shook, and he looked up, tears brimming. You kept this? All this time? Lillian nodded, her own eyes wet. I looked for you. Every charity event, every news clip. When they said you died, I thought I'd failed you. But you're here, and you're still helping people. Just like back then. Avery's throat closed up. She grabbed Miles's arm as he pulled Lillian into a hug, his voice breaking. I guess kindness really does come back around, huh? The crowd had gone quiet, watching, and then someone clapped. Dot from the coffee station. It spread, a wave of sound filling the room, and Avery laughed through her tears. You're a legend, Miles. He wiped his face, grinning. Only 'cause I've got you two. Lillian stepped back, smiling. You know, I always wondered what I'd say if I found you. Now I don't have to. Later, after the speeches and the chowder were gone, Avery and Miles slipped out to the balcony. The rain had eased to a mist, and the city sparkled below, ferries cutting through the sound, the Space Needle piercing the fog. Avery leaned on the railing, her breath fogging in the chilly air. Hard to believe we're here, she said, glancing at him. 3 months ago, I was yelling at you for bumping into my coat. Miles laughed, leaning beside her. Yeah, and I was sleeping under a tree. Life's funny like that. She turned to face him, serious now. You could have gone back, you know. The suits, the penthouse, all of it. Why this? He shrugged, staring out at the water. That guy, Mitch, he's still in here somewhere. But the street taught me more than any boardroom ever did. I don't need a fancy life. I need this. Us, this place, something real. He paused, then softer. I was lost for years, Avery. You found me. This is my home now. Her heart thudded, and she stepped closer, resting her head on his shoulder. You're mine, too, wherever we end up. He wrapped an arm around her, and they stood there, the mist settling on their skin. Inside, the center hummed with life, laughter, clinking mugs, the scratch of crayons on paper. Turner Haven wasn't just a building. It was a promise, one they'd keep together. Avery pulled back, grinning. So, you gonna propose out here or what? Gotta lock this down before some other art chick steals you. Miles snorted. Don't tempt me. I'd need a better ring than that old MT junk first. Deal, she said, and they laughed, the sound carrying into the night. The next morning, Avery posted a photo on Instagram, her and Miles on the balcony, the city behind them, captioned, Found home in the rain, Turner Haven's open, come say hi. Comments flooded in, friends, strangers, even a few old classmates who'd mocked her art. But one stood out from Jake. Told you he was a keeper. Proud of you, Brooks. She smiled, tucking her phone away. Life wasn't perfect. Her dad might never come around, and Miles's memory still had holes, but it was theirs, and that was more than enough. That's the end, folks. Did Miles and Avery's story touch your heart? Subscribe for more tales like this, and let me know your favorite moment in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.